I could have everyone's attention, we're going to move on to our second wonderful speaker, Dr. Héctor Rasgado-Flores, who is a professor at Rosalind Franklin University. Is talented in so many ways, studies material that I can't remember, so he will have to share some of that. But among that is the impact of music, and especially classical music, on the brain, and such a perfect connection with birds and nature sounds and how that impacts our brains, right? We're learning all of these fascinating things about the impact of nature on our health, on our bodies, on our mental and spiritual well-being. And Dr. Héctor Rasgado-Flores is also one of the newest members of Rushwood Center's Board of Directors. So we're so please join me in welcoming Dr. Héctor Rasgado-Flores.
I'm very honored to just became a member a couple of days ago, a member of the board. Very honored for that, and very honored to participate together with Dr. Luis about this presentation. Thank you very much for being here. I'm sure you are enjoying the wonderful experience that this is. Okay, so when they asked me to talk something about the brain and music, so I thought, well, let's talk about some relationship between the music and nature and the brain. And we know that many creatures produce sounds. You have heard the crickets, you have heard many birds, right? You have heard many birds. Have anybody here house mice singing? They do sing, but it's very hard to listen to them because the frequencies are very high, very high frequencies. So scientists weren't really quite aware of this until quite recently, and we now know that it's the males that sing, and they are trying to attract the females. And we didn't know that because it's in high frequency, so it is beyond our capacity to hear. Whales do sing, and I hope you have heard them, and I have a little example in case you haven't heard them in a while, because it's always good to listen to them from time to time. And okay, and of course we produce music with humans, and is the closing and opening of a door, is that music? That's one of the questions I'm going to ask you. And is the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven, the anthem of humanity, that we can call, is that music? That's a question. You may say, what a question is that? I think it's a pertinent question too. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. All right, so whales sing. Yes, indeed they do. It's amazing how beautiful they do. And let's just go a quick example. And it's mainly the males that sing, and mainly they do it during the mating season. This is the Bolivian howling monkeys. I don't know if you have heard them, it's really amazing. And very interestingly, is the males who are singing, and they are trying to attract the females. And very recently, just a few months ago, it was found a very interesting correlation. It's quite fascinating, actually, that how low the pitch of their sound is in opposite correlation to the size of their reproductive organs. Very interesting. It was a lot of thinking already. And also, very recently, it has been studied, these very interesting mice, they are singing in very high frequencies, but look, this one is singing, is close to this other male, and now it's responding to this other male, and they are talking, actually, and scientists just published in this very important scientific magazine, Science, is one of the two most important scientific magazines in the world. And it was published last month, just last month. And what they do is they can see the frequencies produced by one of the mice and the frequencies of the sound by the other mice. They cannot see each other, but they know that they are close in proximity because they hear each other. But the remarkable thing is that the timing is perfect. They is as perfect as humans, exactly as good as humans in a conversation. So we don't know what they are saying. They will be having some interesting things to say, but they are talking. And now, because of this model, scientists are beginning to understand the neurological pathways that allows to establish conversations. And it's very important because these are mammals. This is the difference with birds. These are mammals. And so there is a very close proximity to the brain to our brain. So very interesting things are going to come out of this here. Okay, pitch. Pitch is a note, right? So you can say it's a do, or sol, or re, whatever note, that's a pitch. It means that it has a frequency that is a regular frequency. That's pitch. And in nature, there are many creatures that produce sounds with pitch. And Kirchner, Anastasia Kirchner, in the 1600s, think about that, in 1600s, he went and listened to birds and wrote this singing of their birds. So it's not only pitch, which you can translate into notes, but you could actually put it into music in a music format. Okay, this is very interesting if you think about that. So pitch, to be possible in physics, you have to have a fundamental frequency and other frequencies that we'll talk in a moment. And if you have a sound that doesn't have a periodicity, then you don't have a pitch. That would be, for example, thunder or a cascade or a noise or whistling. That will have a pitch. That's not a sound that you can put into a note. Okay, so there is no regularity there. Very interestingly, pitch-containing sounds in nature are almost, there is only one exception. They're only with one exception produced by creatures, by living creatures. Can anybody think what could be the exception?
The ground itself.
Ground, that wouldn't be a note that you could say, a pitch that you could identify with a note. There is only one exception. Yes. Yes. It's the wind. The wind, when it passes to a crevice, it produces a note, a pitch. And that's the principle for the wind instruments, precisely, right? Okay. But this is very interesting if you think about it. Pitch is very important because in nature, only living creatures produces pitch, okay? That's very important. And it would have to do with survival, it would have to do with adaptation to the environment. Pitch is so important that, look at this graph, we have here the intensity that you need to have in a sound to be able to hear it. And here we have the frequency, so it could be different notes. So from low frequencies to high frequencies, okay? And you see that there is a range of frequencies where you need very little intensity to be able to hear the sound. But if you are either to the left or to the right of that range, then you need a lot more intensity to hear. Now, can you think why is this frequency so important? Why this range of sounds, frequencies, is so important? This is in humans.
Is it because that's the range that humans hear?
It's pitch, exactly. This is our language. This is where we talk. So it's critical for us to be very sensitive to that. Pitch perception, this took many years for physiologists to come to terms with the fact that that's what it is. It is subjective. That's it. It was very hard to come to terms with that. But this is the truth. It is subjective. It's actually, a good part is an illusion. It's an illusion. And we'll talk about, we have time a little bit about illusions today. there are some amazing illusions that our brain creates to make us our life easier. So the correspondence of the actual frequencies and the pitches is only true at these ranges, the ranges where we have the most sensitivity. And at the other ranges, there is no correspondence. So there's a subjective understanding of how we listen to sounds. And very interestingly too, is what the phenomenon that's called the missing fundamental. We'll talk about that in a moment. It's very interesting. Okay, now look at this. We have some young audience here. This is called a cassette tape. They have never seen that in their lives. I don't think they have a clear idea of what is that for. Okay, but we used to have them quite a bit, and the wonderful thing about these cassette tapes is very practical because you could take the tape and cut it. And so you could record a sound, and that's what we did here with some of my students. We recorded a piano sound. And I had the students to cut it. These are medical students, to cut the tape, okay? And then to reverse the tape, okay? So that when we played the tape in the, what is called the cassette player, we could hear to the tape going forwards and going backwards, okay? And look what happens. This is very interesting. That's the piano first, and now the inverted. Can you hear it?
Very, very faint.
It's like an harmonium. It doesn't sound like a piano at all. Okay. So what happens is that our brain makes a decision of what sound we are hearing at the beginning of the sound. And the formation of sounds to make a sound of a piano occurs in time, but if you put it in the opposite direction, is very similar to the formation that an harmonium sound makes. So when you hear it in the reverse order, you don't hear the piano, you hear a harmonium. And it doesn't matter if what happens afterwards. Your mind says it's a harmonium, and it's a harmonium, that's it. And it could be really extreme, and we have tried to do this, but it's very hard, with a trumpet. Trumpet produces a sound very fast. If you were able to cut that trumpet sound at the beginning of the formation of the sound, and paste there the sound of a piano, let's say, and then you keep the sound of the trumpet all the way, and you hear it, you hear it's a piano. And your mind is so stubborn that you hear it's a piano, even if it's not a piano at all. It's a trumpet. Okay? Why is that? Well, because the pitch is essential for us to survive. We want to know if it's a bird, or if it's a lion that is coming, right? Or it's a snake or something. We need to know right away, and we don't think more than that. We have to make the decision immediately and appropriately adapt to that sound. Okay? So that's why pitch is so important in nature. All right. So let's play this dog, for example. Okay? And let me ask you, I asked this to the medical, it has 33 hertz frequency, that one, okay? And let me ask you, how many notes are being produced? Okay. Now think about that. Who thinks is 1? You can raise your hand. Who thinks is 2? 3, 4, 5. Okay, maybe we didn't answer one. All right. And my medical students, most of them, well, a good number think that is 1. And I have given a similar presentations to these to children. I'm very interested in working with them. And all of them think that is 1. That's very interesting. And adults know that is more. So what happens is there was a string made of, it produced a sound. But not only, it was also vibrating in halves and thirds and fourths and fifths. It was very interesting that he could see that. So the fundamental, for example, is this dot that we were saying. that has that frequency of 33 hertz. But when we play this, we are also hearing the frequency multiplied by 2, the frequency multiplied by 3, this is a G, or multiplied by 4, and then, so all these sounds come together when we produce one single sound. They're part of the same family. So no wonder, when you play 3 sounds together, it sounds good. Because they are already there, right? And that's the basis of harmony. Harmony is based on math and physics, and the need of our brain to simplify everything, to make it easier to survive. So, very important reason. All right. But the remarkable thing, this is a brain scan from primate. These are the marmoset monkeys. Okay. All right. This is an amazing strain. So here you have in different colors the different frequencies where in the auditory cortex the brain of the monkey responds to these frequencies. Okay? All right. But we said you have a fundamental, right? And then you have the harmonics. That we call the harmonics are the other frequencies that accompany the original sound. Okay, they are called harmonics. The remarkable thing is that these scientists removed the fundamental electronically and only gave to the monkeys the harmonics. In principle, they shouldn't activate the area of the brain where the fundamental is located, right? Because there is no fundamental there. They removed the do. They just gave the accompanying frequency that came together with that. And what they found is that the place where the fundamental should be activated gets activated. It's called the missing fundamental. And this is something quite remarkable. We humans do it all the time. You have your cell phone. When somebody calls you, you can tell if it's a man or a woman perfectly. And you shouldn't be able to tell because your phones don't allow the very low frequencies to be reproduced in the phone. You only get the harmonics. And you put the fundamental because then it makes sense. And in the Middle Ages, the builders of the cathedrals, they knew that too. It's amazing. They knew that too. And they could build organs when they didn't have a lot of space and money that couldn't have these enormous pipes to produce the very low frequencies. They only built the harmonics. And when they played, the people hear the fundamental. It's incredible. They knew it. They knew it. It's amazing. All right. So, pertinent question. What is music? Good question, right? Any proposals? Yes, please.
Cage, the famous composer,
Very advanced answer here.
said that the sounds coming outside of his apartment in Manhattan were more remarkable than any music he could create.
Well, we have a very advanced answer here yet. All right. So I went to Encyclopedia Britannica, okay, the venerable Encyclopedia Britannica, right? And this is the definition they give. The art, we have a problem already there, concerned with combining vocal or instrumental sounds for beauty or of form or emotional expression, usually according to cultural standards of rhythm, melody, and harmony. That's the definition of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay? Very problematic problem we have here. Because I can ask you, is this music the music of the sound of a waterfall? What do you think?
Yeah.
Is the whales music? Yeah. The crickets? The mice? The birds? The humans? The Ninth Symphony of Beethoven?
Yes.
It's very pertinent question. I'll show you in a moment. What about the door that opens and closes?
No, that's noisy.
Very good. Okay, we have little time, so I'm going to skip the examples, although they are very beautiful. This Vivaldi is amazing. And Olivier Messiaen, he went to France and cataloged the music, what he interpreted as music of the sounds of 77 birds for the piano. It's quite amazing, very, very difficult to play, and extraordinary composition. And George Crumb, the US composer in '71, he did a chamber composition where he combined the sounds of whales with a piano and a flute and cello and violin. It's quite a beautiful composition. If you haven't heard it, you should. I think you should. Okay, and Pierre Henry in 1963, he wrote a piece that is called Variations for a Door on an Aside. Wow. So let's listen to that because maybe you haven't heard it. Okay, we have to wait for 4 seconds for it. All right, so that's Pierre Henry composition. Is that music? Well, this is interesting, right?
Fundamental.
Maybe for him, he is. Yeah, for the people that buy the CD, it is, right? Yes. So, and what about, okay, so, all right, let's move on. And what about the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven? Is the anthem of humanity, right? It's pertinent that I ask you if it's music or not, because let's suppose that we are having this conversation right now, okay? And somebody comes with a radio with the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven and plays it. Is that music? Well, maybe not. Maybe it is noise, because we are conversing, and that is interfering. That's the basic definition of noise in physics, interfering with our conversation. So it depends. Everything depends. So music is some perception that we have that originally came from a source, which is a sound, and is translated in our ears to the language that our brain understands, which are nerve impulses. And they go to the auditory cortex, and then we have that perception. We could have, for example, a person that is training music could see a score, a music score, and is that music? Yeah, it is music for that person. Beethoven couldn't hear, and is that music what he was doing? Yes, certainly. And there is not even a sound there at all. And still it is music, right? And very interestingly here also, you see that there is also information coming from the central nervous system to the receptor to modulate that information. And that is very important. That's extremely important. Okay, so this definition is definitely not good. They will have to change the venerable Encyclopedia Britannica. All right. Okay, we have just a few minutes. Let me synthesize a few very important ideas. Okay, a girl who has never taken a piano lesson is walking on the street with her parents and tells them to go with them to the store. And she sits down and begins to play for them, something that she learned with her friends. You know that hard and soul. Maybe some of you can play that. In medical students, in my classes, every time there is somebody who doesn't play the piano who can play that. But that's remarkable if you think about it, because it's not so trivial, and it can be done, okay? And how is that possible? Well, because there is the physical and mathematical basics of music construction. We maybe won't have time to talk about that, but also the physiological basics of music perception. And most importantly, because, what do you think? The most important reason. Emotion, okay, it's related. Communication has to do with that too. Well, the answer is because you are desperate. You are really, really desperate. You are terribly desperate. And that's why nature is so beautiful. And that's why we have music. And that's why we appreciate beauty and we survive, because we are desperate. How desperate are we? Quite a bit. I don't know if you have seen this, it's quite remarkable. You see here, you have these two squares, A and B. Anybody, I don't care if you have seen this before or not, anybody would say that A is darker than B, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. But if you begin to put blocks there, you see that they are the same. And you know that they are the same, and you see them still. They are the same, and you see them, they are not different. Why? Because you are desperate. You are desperate to make sense of things. So we are beginning to understand now that our perception is a balance between the information coming from the outside world and information coming from the brain itself to modulate that information. And it's so important, that modulation, that if you block, scientists can do that now with mice. They can block that part of the modulation, and even if their eyes are perfect and work perfectly, they cannot perceive the environment in mice. That important is that information coming from the brain too. So it is a balance, our perception is a balance between what we are sensing, our experience, and the predictions that we make of the environment to produce that actual perception. And this is just to remind my medical students that, because they forget, that in the cochlea, in the ear, in the inner ear, they have these cilia cells that when the sound comes to the inner ear, these cells get deflected, the cilia, and when that happens, that activates the neurons. And they know that, of course. But what I remind them is that there are two groups, the outer cells and the inner cells. The inner cells are 3 times less abundant than the outer cells. Okay. But the remarkable thing is that the outer cells do not bring information from the ear to the brain. They bring information from the brain to the ear. Think about that. 3 times as abundant is not to bring information to your brain, is to bring information from the brain to the ear. And let me finish up let me just finish up with this experiment that was made in the 50s. Very interesting experiment. You have a cat, okay? And the cat has in its auditory cortex an electrode that you can see the activity in the auditory cortex. And then the scientist is producing a click. And when the click is produced, you see the electrode producing a response. So the cat is hearing the click. All right. But if the cat is exposed to a mouse, even if the click keeps going, the cat doesn't hear the click anymore. Even if the click is there and all the pathway is perfectly. this is not important, the click. It's completely irrelevant. What matters is the mouse. Okay? So when the mouse is removed and the click remains, now the click comes back. Okay, so there are many very interesting examples. What I would like you to get the idea is that our perception of, let's do this very interesting. Our perception of reality is a illusion. It's an illusion, and we are now taking the original thoughts of Darwin when he said that the evolution, let's think of a peacock, for example, beautiful peacock, that of course it's easy they display their beauty to attract the female, right? Okay. And of course one would say, well, it is the more fit, the healthier one that will be the most beautiful, right? To attract the female. But Darwin said something that it was completely forgotten and nobody believed it. And now we're beginning to retake that idea, is that the peacock is not only showing its fitness, but also the appreciation of beauty. And that's what he said. It's quite amazing. And we are beginning to take that idea again, the appreciation of beauty as part of our physiology, of our basic mechanisms of survival. So look at this guy. Let's do with this experiment. This is very interesting. This is a student, and you do this experiment with students that are all the time, right? So you have the student here, and he has his left arm. He cannot see the left arm because there is this barrier there. Okay, but he can see plastic arm that is close to where his left arm would be. Okay, he knows perfectly well that this is a plastic hand, right? Okay, and another student is caressing the two hands, the real hand and the hand of the student, with a brush, very carefully at the same time. Okay, all right, and this is what happens. Believe it or not, the student feels the pain. And they have done this in incredible circumstances, like this big man, this big guy, that they put this artificial virtual reality, exactly, thank you, virtual reality, that he can see, instead of his legs, he's seeing the legs of a doll, of a little doll. So it could be more ridiculous than that. And by again stimulating the legs of the doll and his legs at the same time, and they hit the legs of the doll, and this guy screams. So our interpretation of reality is based on our experiences, it's based on predictions, and the beauty that we see in nature has to do with our very basic means for survival.